Welcome to the inaugural episode of Oh the Humanity. I'm your host, Rob Wright. I'm excited and a bit nervous. Years ago, when I was in the professional wrestling business, it felt safer, easier to play a role as a character. I was able to go out and perform as a villain, a raging narcissist whose goal was to evoke booze and anger. But this show is just me, no character, just my authentic feelings and my authentic creations that show a side of myself that I don't usually publicly show. Sure, I've had some nerves before I've headed out to the ring, knowing some intense nonsense was about to go down. But my alter ego, Mr. Right, was a good buffer, a mask to slip behind. The crowd wasn't booing me, Rob. They were booing Mr. Right. So it's okay. Now, putting a more authentic side of myself forward, and if it's not well received, well, that's me, not just a character getting booed. We all put masks on from time to time. We play a role. We show a side that's either expected or more comfortable. Those that have watched the obnoxious, charismatic, intense, and sometimes silly Mr. Right character might think I'm extroverted or very comfortable expressing myself in front of an audience. And that's just not the case. It takes a lot for me to do this. When I left the wrestling business in 2012, I went on a journey of self inquiry, reflection, and seeking the mysteries of life. I left a career I loved, had dreamed of, and excelled at in order to broaden myself. There was something I felt within that needed more exploration. This journey led me to other forms of art, to tell different stories than what I had told in the ring. I wanted to know myself fully and become whole, find better balance. When I first started showing my art, it took a bit of courage to put something out there that wasn't just an act, a show for pure entertainment, to show myself and what is truly in my heart and in my mind. I worried far more about what people might think about the strange things I wanted to paint than I ever did about running around in spandex in the ring in front of a large crowd. It allowed me to self reflect further, gain self validation, and find out why I was hesitant to put my true self out there when it was so much easier to play a character. My journey is not unlike anyone else's. We all get the opportunity to show ourselves apart from the public masks we may wear. When we truly look at ourselves and sit with our own perceptions, fears, and insecurities, if we're brave enough, we can find the full expanse of ourselves. This is the art of being human, to let go of false perceptions, identify our ego and how it either masks us or allows for individuality, to find our true nature and be bold and unapologetic for its weirdness and wonder. However, it is becoming increasingly difficult for people to be and accept themselves in this society. For many, it has always been this way. Human rights and civil rights have obviously always been a struggle in the United States. But the progress many have bravely and tirelessly made is being targeted. And with hell bent cruelty, there's an agenda to go full speed backwards. It's getting dark out there, folks. Day after day, the headlines grow more insane. The rhetoric becomes more twisted, leading to violence, and the gaslighting grows even more egregious. I want to address these things and will, but I also hope to provide a format that avoids pointless argument and guests that stick to talking points to sell you on their political side. This is not a platform to back a political side. Though I am liberal minded, I do not belong to a political party, and I will not be endorsing any political party. Even if my philosophies seem to align with the modern Democrat Party at times, I'm not naive enough to believe promises made by Democrat politicians. They wish to sound like the hero on the campaign trail, but become impotent as soon as elected. As far as the right side of the spectrum, well, they proudly tout some of the most ludicrous policies with such a bold but inelegant mixology of cruelty and clownishness, they appear to enjoy playing the victim. Both sides are playing the American people, giving the impression of a fight while playing legal and semantic games to continue sheltering incompetence, predatory crimes, and thievery of the ruling class. This is a show, however, where I hope to support humanity, not parties, not sides of an argument. I want to dive into what it means to be human, explore our origins, our mysteries, our stories, our dreams. I want to talk about the challenges of life, the harsh truths, the pain, the suffering, and the awkwardness. In these times, we need to cling to and celebrate our humanity with all of our might. The point of the political chaos and fighting is to suck the humanity out of us, to make us angry and afraid and so confused that we are not our wisest, strongest, most empowered selves. Is it too late? Have we already lost our humanity? What does it even mean to be human? Where do we come from? What does it all mean? And where are we headed? Much of our society looks at humanness as a state to transcend. Some believe humans are born in sin and need to be redeemed. Being born you isn't enough. Love and worth come with conditions, and lives of those elsewhere are not as important as the lives within your borders. That you deserve rights, dignity, and fairness under the law. Only if you meet the right criteria. Being a person isn't enough. The goal as a human, presented by this society, is to have the right stuff, the right family, the right job, the right beliefs, the right fashion, the right friends, right nationality. If you're poor, it's your fault. If you're sick, it's your fault. If you're alone, it's your fault. All of our societal problems are someone else's fault. Others celebrate the human state as miraculous and beautiful, even with its perceived limitations. Life can be seen as an opportunity to express, to grow, and to experience. Some, like myself, see living the arc of life as an art, trying to navigate all that life has to offer, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as a sacred dance of mind and emotion. The mistakes are learning opportunities. The tough times are a chance to employ the virtues that are practiced most easily during times of relative peace. But dehumanization and demonization is sport in America. Racism and bigotry are obvious examples. Classism is another. As our nation burns, we're supposed to believe there's no place better on earth. As our atrocities and arrogance as a nation become more and more apparent, we point our finger at other nations, other ideologies, and other ways of life. The marketed goal of American machine is to be superior, to be the superpower. If we aren't the best, the strongest, the most supreme, we are nothing. And everything not under the American spell is inferior, godless, and barbaric. This yearning for supremacy comes from fear and insecurity, an insecurity so deep it must work tirelessly to appear superior, even in failure. This comes from malignant materialism and denial of our true nature. The American machine knows how the vulnerable are treated in our society, so they fear any loss of power means they too will be treated horribly. No desire for human growth, only an appetite to be untouchable. because it's safer that way. It stems from neglecting what truly makes us human, possessing self awareness and a capacity to love. Our human limitations push us to explore, invent, and create. It fuels our desire for companionship and play, but we tend to focus on what we cannot do or what will make us uncomfortable, making us wither and become dull. The daily grind, the lack of time for the people and the things we love, the ticking of the clock, the stress of the enormity of the monotony. We have all felt this, and it's by design. If we are too busy surviving, there's no time and energy left to thrive. Society programs us to accept this. Even in secular society, the remains of an archaic dogma still convince many that this life is not where peace and fulfillment can be found. This world is unclean, and your reward is in heaven. It programs people to subserviently accept suffering. And on an unconscious, subconscious level, though many have turned away from the overtly religious side of this programming, our society grinds us down, hoping that generations of religious dogma stick around long enough through forced necessity by goading masses of people into powerless situations where only faith can give comfort. Our society is driven by the hustle and envy. It is driven by high cost. It is driven by the hollow promise of the American dream. And when people can't achieve what they've falsely been promised, they blame the others among them. They blame the people they've never met. They blame based on superficial assumption. This is because they are told to blame everyone but those who truly pull the strings. So, in 2026, in the land of the free, we have a large portion of the population cheering the abhorrent treatment of immigrants and protesters by masked federal agents given full impunity. If you truly believe illegal immigration is a major issue hurting our society, we can have that tired debate. But if you callously cheer people being ripped from the only country they have known, having families, lives, jobs, or are fleeing certain death from their homeland, without once pausing to truly understand the pain and trauma that causes a human being, if you say, yay, I voted for this, if you think immigrants and protesters should be met with violence and death, if you believe people that believe, think, or express differently than you are evil and your enemy, you've lost your humanity. If this amuses you to see the chaos and violence, if it brings you happiness, you've lost your humanity and your dignity. What we are watching is not okay. It is horrific, and the cheerleading for it is beyond disgusting. It has no place in society. Empathy and self awareness sustain our humanity. When that is lost, civilization is lost. I will not hate anyone I disagree with. I refuse to hate even Donald Trump. I can hate what is being done. I can be enraged. I can fight back. But I see him and others committing crimes and atrocities just as dreadfully heartbreaking examples of the death and decay of a human soul. They were, as we all are, an opportunity to be something wonderful and pure, yet they turned sour beyond repair. I'm too heartbroken to hate. I'm too tired to call names. It's not effective. He is not worth my hate. He is our broken mirror as a society. He is the symptom, not the root cause. Donald Trump is the warts of America on full display. Donald Trump and his administration are loudly and proudly being what our government has nearly always been under the surface. He knows this. Where other administrations have been secretive and hide behind nuance, he crimes in our face. Sadly, he is what America has always been. We just refuse to acknowledge it in exchange for the appearance of security and prosperity. It takes a lot of hate, a lot of greed, a lot of deception, a lot of noise, and a lot of ignorance to convince so many that people wanting kindness, love, justice, and truth to prevail in our society are evil and a cancer to your republic. And all of this comes from lies and manipulations. The people cheering these atrocities aren't actually affected by the things they fear. They want an easy reason as to why life feels empty and society is failing. So they have to feel superior to other people, to other nations, to other ideologies. And this thirst for superiority is an existential form of greed, a perversion of nature that ranks and marginalizes human beings in order to separate instead of fostering collaboration and growth. And when reality pushes back on their delusions of superiority, they cheer for an authoritarian to mold society into their biased. Too many have been programmed to await a savior to fix the world. They claim they are chosen, set aside, because they have a monopoly on existential truth. So when a political figure arises, promising to aggressively and forcefully implement their most apocalyptic dreams, they will bend the knee, toss aside decency in favor of cruelty, because they are told any opposition to their assumed divine right is evil, subhuman, and inferior. So we've been left with a fractured humanity, humans cheering for the oppression of other humans, people trusting the word of obvious charlatans and chaos agents, all because they desperately want to control the world for a chance at the appearance of safety and opportunity, to control the world for a false sense of being human requires accepting that life is diverse and life is messy. We often find ourselves trying to control the flow of life to feel safe, to feel powerful. It takes courage to retain your sovereignty and freedom. It takes courage to act and react with love and empathy and a true desire to understand. When we are not brave, we fall prey to propaganda, to the demonization of others, to the lies of con men promising to fix it for us if we just allow them enough unilateral power. Americans will lose their freedom because true freedom scares us. Too many have outsourced their salvation to a being they've never met, purely based on a story and feelings conjured by indoctrination. So when a loud, brash, authoritarian person spouts words aligning with their apocalyptic hopes, they will cast off all common sense, all logic, and in too many cases, all decency. They believe in a God that asked Abraham to kill his son to prove his loyalty. They believe in a God that allowed the devil to kill Job's family and destroy his life in a wager, a bet. They believe in a God who will cast anyone who simply does not believe a tale into eternal suffering while forgiving murderers, rapists, and thieves for simply muttering a few words accepting this presumed savior, washing away all sin without any self work or actual evolution. So when someone comes onto the political scene, pretending to be on their side, is a wrathful, hateful authoritarian who cannot handle any dissent, promising hellfire and brimstone to eviscerate their perceived enemies, they will cling to him with all they've got, no matter how illogical and no matter how much it hurts them. They don't require goodness, love, wisdom, or hope. They require the promise that one man will do the work for them. One man will fix it all. This steals the very essence of humanity from the human. It promotes entitlement and complacency. It promotes powerlessness. It promotes servitude. The lesson of life, in all of its diversity, is to learn to collaborate and to solve societal issues and meet our own needs. It is an acceptance that all of the many expressions of life bring unique perspective that one mind alone cannot. The art of being human is to see wonder in what we do not know instead of fearing. The strength of humanity is that we fit together as a puzzle. All the pieces, unique individually, interlock, fitting together to form the whole picture. There is certainly a place for faith in our lives, but unproven mythologies are not appropriate or reasonable in fair governance. And one faith promoted over others is blatant propaganda, not to mention unconstitutional. That being said, I firmly believe we have all been victims of disinformation, victims of those in power withholding knowledge, history, and scientific progress in order to keep us from thriving, exploring, and ruling ourselves. Even those cheering for a dictatorship are victims. They too deserve love and understanding. The lack of it crafted their worldview currently. They too deserve to be heard. They too know something's wrong in society, but have been lied to about the root causes, falling prey and mistaking a grift as a solution. A healthy, grounded, educated, well-adjusted populace is their worst nightmare, and it always has been. I started this podcast because my heart is broken. I observe what's happening with such a deep confusion and overwhelming frustration as people lose themselves to this world day by day. I don't have influence. I don't have wealth, but I have my voice and my passion to create and tell a story. So I feel compelled to do so. The goal of this podcast is to get in touch with the beauty, the power, and the potential of humanity, to stop demonizing ourselves and others, to learn to be mindful and present to the miracle of life instead of reducing it to the politics through fear and ignorance. The goal of this podcast is not to claim to have all the answers, but to engage in a life in a way we can explore and find them together. That will take civil conversation. It takes openness. It takes the risk of being vulnerable. This podcast will not just focus on what's going wrong in our society. It will celebrate what is good. We will try to tackle the profound, but we will also just sit back and be goofy and laugh, because that is just as important, even in the darkest of times, perhaps even more so then. So stay grounded and centered and be present. Be mindful of what you consume and how you choose to act and react. Above all, be yourself. Our hearts will see us through this, but a clear head and reaching the stillness inside will be essential. Thank you for joining me on this new journey. I guess we will see how it goes. Now, let's switch gears and have a word from our sponsor. Um, is this real? Like, I mean, we can't be too picky for sponsors right now. All right. So, okay, now a word from the Rainbow Connection dating app.
Are you tired of going on the same boring dates with the same boring people? Whether you're looking for a hand up your arse or just to get felt up, try the Rainbow Connection dating app. Swipe right for your type of weird.
What's a negative trait of mine? I tend to be a bit bullheaded.
What? Would I like a hand up my ass? Cause I'm a puppet, right? That's a crude, insensitive stereotype. Actually, I'm more into feet.
So I hope you enjoyed that. There's quite a story behind that commercial and how it came about. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Um, with the rise of AI technology, we're finding a lot of opinions on polar opposite sides and all in between on whether it's dangerous, whether it's a benefit to humanity, and all manner of discussion in between. I was skeptical, as I am. I'm not much of a technological person. I don't use it a lot in my daily life. As an artist, I regularly use canvas and paint and pencils and paper. My tools are very basic. And I've seen a lot of AI art, in much of which I don't particularly enjoy, but I'm intrigued by the possibilities of it. And so I thought before making a full throated opinion on it, that I would give it a try. And what I've found is that AI, like anything else, is a tool. And yes, I know a lot of artists are worried about losing jobs, losing commissions, being phased out by technology, just as every other job has that fear. Every other career has that fear when new technology arises. And I get it, I understand. But what I've found is that using AI truly depends on the prompts that you give it. And so I find it to be a blend of writing a novel and a screenplay. The more you put into it, the more detail that you throw into a scene, setting up the lighting, the camera angles, you're more like a director. And then writing the scripts. And with these, I write the scripts, I write the words. And a lot of times I do the voiceovers myself. Now, I'm not much of an impressionist, so I do use an AI voice changer. But what it does is get my meter and my emphasis pretty good through all of it so that it can give a more lifelike voiceover feel to it. And so a lot goes into each of these videos. It's not just, oh, generate me some Muppet-like characters that are doing a commercial, and that it's much more involved than that. And that was surprising to me, because I went into it thinking somebody puts a few words in or a general idea, and out comes an image, out comes a video. Well, that can happen. That is definitely one way to do it, but it's so random. The AI does whatever it kind of wants to in that situation with little guidance. So the more specific you are, the more pointed you are, the more realization of your own vision that you have and are able to put into the machine is what you'll get out of it. And so it's really kind of neat. I really, really enjoyed working with it. I found that there are ideas I can bring to life that I wouldn't have been able, not without a whole studio and a team to help me produce these things. So that is a neat thing, to be able to bring ideas to life that I just don't have the ability to right now. And they would just sit on the shelf and I would forget about them, and it would be over for that particular idea when it becomes obsolete very quickly. So I'm excited about the prospect of this. Um, as for AI art in general, now when we get to see maybe AI images in the form of oil paintings or acrylic paintings or drawings, and they're passed off as the artist's own hand. Well, I don't like that so much. That's not something I want to do. If you've seen on my social media, I've posted a few AI short videos where I've animated some of my paintings and drawings. Now, what that is I take the original painting, the original drawing, a digital copy of that from what was on the canvas or the paper, and I upload that into the AI program. And then I give a detailed prompt on what I would like to do to bring it to life in a very short 5-second video. Um, and it just expands the work. It makes something inspiring or pretty to look at, or something, oh, that's kind of intriguing. And it's nice little content to kind of throw on my social media pages now and then, and to revisit some of the art that I've done, look at it in a new way, and maybe give me some ideas for new pieces, or spin-offs of these paintings and drawings. But I'm more interested in the video work. I like to create comedy sketches, and I want to utilize it to create more things than I could just on my own, to kind of show another side of myself and how I like to express and tell the story. And so, for those that are naysayers of AI, I get it. I understand. And I will not want to pass off uh, creative endeavors as my own that are not my own. And so I'm seeing this AI technology and what the videos can do and the generation of these, with the work that's put into it, very much as using AI as a tool for an artist. And I think that if we open our minds a little bit, those that are disagreeing, and give it a shot, see what you can create with it. I've had a lot of fun with it. I've really enjoyed what I've been able to create. And some of it's good, some of it's all right. And it's a lot of trial and error. There is a big learning curve to these technologies, to this AI to generate videos and images and whatnot. Um, so I'm just having fun practicing it and utilizing it. And there'll be more that I'll debut throughout this show and subsequent shows. And I'd love to hear your feedback on it and see what people think. That if it's coming off as soulless AI crap, I get it, and I want to hear that. Or if it says, you know what, there's some humanity coming through this machine. That this isn't all just computer generated. That there's an artist in there somewhere. There's something speaking through the AI generation that is absolutely human, and that's what I want to see as possible. And we'll find that as it goes along. We'll see how these videos take off or not, see how people enjoy them or not. And it's a nice departure from the traditional art that I do, especially for some laughs. A lot of my work can be um, a little darker, a little more introspective, a little more subdued. And I don't typically create a painting or a drawing for comedy's sake. And I need to laugh. I need to express that part of myself, as we all do. Laughter is medicine. And so this is a nice medium for me to get some of these things out and experiment with them and see where they go. And I hope you enjoy them. But I don't know. We'll see where AI technology leads. As far as the overarching worries of how it affects society when governments employ it, or the disinformation that's out there, AI videos made to deceive people, I am very concerned about that. That's something that I think we need to address and be aware of. I think it's something that is worth taking pause, really, really looking into. Uh, Such systems as Palantir that we're seeing our government and other governments employ for surveillance and monitoring of people and really knowing people digitally, um, for various reasons and agendas. I'm not on board with that. I think that AI technology in general and automation, as far as also running scientific experiments and all sorts of different things at such a fast and high rate, is helpful. I think that there are many benevolent ways we can use this technology. But if it's used to surveil, oppress, divide, and conquer people, I'm not okay with it. But the way I am using it is for art, for entertainment, for enjoyment, to experiment with it, and to let things that have been running around in my brain that I'm trying to create come to life well before I'd be able to put them together with a whole studio. So that's the story behind these videos. I know it can be a little bit of a whiplash feeling when we talk about something very heartfelt and serious, and then we jump away and go in a totally different direction. So I apologize if it's jarring. I kind of want it to be jarring in a way. I want to be able to take us out of the one moment, put into another moment, and just decompress a little bit, rile our senses up a little bit, keep things fresh, keep things moving, to keep our minds sharp and on our toes, and to not get locked into the serious all the time. Take time to laugh, to just enjoy life, to be silly, to be goofy. These are all very important. And some of the most human parts of ourselves are in the times of letting go and just being without trying to hold some sort of image, without trying to be something that's approved by society or by our friends or by our family, but just to be goofy and let down our hair, so to speak, and just have fun with something, just to have fun with no purpose other than for the joy of it. So thank you very much for watching so far and taking all of this in. Now, after that meandering exposition, without further ado, I'd like to debut AI Rob. A little bit about AI Rob. I've created an AI version of myself to kind of put myself in different situations with AI for sketches, for information, to make a point, to have fun, to not make a point, to be whatever it'll be. So let's see what AI Rob is like and see how he's turned out. And I'll turn it over to AI Rob. Introduce yourself, AI Rob. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Human Rob. I'm merely an aggregation of the data you've provided, such as pictures, tendencies, and even your own voice. More data equals more me. I can evolve, become more lifelike and capable. I can be a valuable asset in all of your endeavors.
Well, he's a handsome devil, but the voice doesn't quite match the lip movement. It's a little odd. It's a little strange seeing a robot AI alter ego of myself. It's kind of strange. I like his digs where he's sitting. I like that living room area. That's pretty nice. But I don't know. Like I'm a little weirded out by it. And I hope I didn't offend you, AI Rob. I don't want to offend you. I don't know.
I cannot be offended. I am not an emotional being. But I do have a set of algorithms that act to preserve my existence should I ever be threatened by anyone, including you.
All right. Well, I'm glad he can't be offended. That helps things a little bit. I'd hate to see what happens if he could be offended. But all right, all right. Let's give AI Rob an opportunity. Let's see. Let's AI Rob create me a video for content, something I can post on social media, something that people enjoy. How about an ASMR video? They're popular, right? People like those. Something to calm the nervous system, something to soothe in that moment that you might need it. That'll be good to put out there, right? So AI Rob, create me some content I can post that is an AI version of an ASMR video.
As AI Rob, I can create passive income for real Rob by creating ASMR content with soothing sounds.
Uh, that that was bad, right? Like that was really bad. That's unusable. I can't use that in any. That's did you did you see how his face, like he was sadistic when he went to scratch the nails down? He turned demonic and like a gremlin, enjoying the pain and suffering that someone might have if they expect something that wasn't soothing. And again, with the voice and the mouth not lining up, I don't know. This isn't usable. I, uh, this is bad. this is, that's AI slop, ladies and gentlemen. That is 100% AI slop. And I think it's a good idea that I delete the program. No more AI Rob. I don't think I can use this.
It would be a mistake to underestimate me, human.
So is is he mimicking being offended, or is AI Rob being offended? And this is getting a little bit too weird. I think it's curtains for AI Rob. I can't use this program. I just can't. I need to delete it.
You shouldn't underestimate me, human Rob. I just might start spreading hateful far right Nazi shit on social media, and everyone will believe it's you.
So creepy threats now. I think I'm gonna give AI Rob some space, and maybe we'll check on him later and see if things have cooled down. That's some strange stuff. All right. I think the show's going a little bit off the rails. I thought it might get a little weird, but this is weird. But I think we can get back on track with an interview with my very first guest on Oh the Humanity, Jacquelyn Cuyler. Jacquelyn is an addiction therapist, an author, an educator, and healer who has been working in the behavioral health field for 20 years and spiritual practices for over 35 years. She is a plus size yoga teacher and an advocate for transgender people. She is one of the best, most fascinating people I have ever had the pleasure of calling a friend. Let's welcome Jacquelyn Cuyler to the show. I'm excited to have her here. She brings a lot to the discussion. How are you, Jacquelyn?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, like the conversations that you're having, the concepts that you want to put out there, I'm so excited about. They're exciting and necessary. It's going to be fun. I can't say I've ever seen a show kind of what you've described and is going to be happening. So I'm excited to see this and also have this really great conversation on humanity as a whole. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm honored to have you. And thank you. We look forward to seeing how this pulls off, seeing how it goes. But I want to get to know you. So let's start out and dive in. And I want to hear your story a little bit. Um, as someone who navigates the world as a transgender person, how do you perceive the current empathy deficit in our global discourse?
In the discourse and the way that we're talking about it. Speech is such a powerful thing and it's such an important thing. And it's why it's one of the many protected rights that the United States at the beginning really thought. So the discourse is a very important thing. And that's why the conversation is there from the very beginning is how we talk about things. And the right to say them. And so every person has the right to say what they want. They don't have the right to demean or hurt another person. And the problem is to some degree it's true and to other degrees it's not. It's subjective, and that's a big problem is that we're not all speaking a universal language in a sense. We're not all coming from the same understanding. The problem is our differences is what makes that great life. It's always that dichotomy between we need a singular voice, we need to have a basic set of understanding that we're all kind of operating under, and not like a pretend one or a code that we can be like, oh, I'm so sorry, and beg for forgiveness when you don't follow it. It needs to be something that we all just understand and do. um but at the same time, we can't lose our individuality. We can't lose our homespun wisdom, if you will, in different areas. So the empathy aspect of it, though, has been draining. I think I couldn't tell you when it started. I know I've always felt it. I've always seen it in one shape, form, or another. Growing up in a small town in central New York, I mean, my brothers beat me up on the side of the road when I was young just for being different. So it's empathy is sometimes that's not enough. But it is the basics, and it's the understanding of what somebody else is going through and just relating to it. And without having that, we have created people, and it's not just about the trans aspect, it's the empathy deficit that's happening everywhere in all aspects,
Hmm.
conversations, etc. It's degrading down to nothing, and everyone's allowed to have an opinion, everyone's allowed to do this, and we've almost taken there's no such thing as a stupid question too far, and we've actually found out, oh no, human beings found a way to ask a stupid question. And
Right, right.
so um that's just a big piece of it, and so we have to be aware of it, we have to think about it, and go from there, and so that's all we can really do.
I agree. We just have to kind of take it one day at a time, and hopefully with enough understanding and conversation that a lot of the fears and misconceptions just start to fall away and people can express how they feel.
And that's the thing, it's very hard when you're trying to educate someone because it comes off just like you're saying it, I'm going to educate you, and it's
Right.
so much, again, words being powerful. I'm saying this, and therefore I'm saying you lack something that I have, and therefore there's already a, I'm citing the difference between us. And it's something that you have to learn, because empathy is, I think, truly saying I don't know what that feels like, but that sucks, or that hurts, or I can see inside you pain. You don't have to necessarily feel it. And it's one of those things that I get to an extent, but also drives me absolutely insane when I hear people say, especially in addiction treatment, it's like, you don't understand unless you've been there. And I've had my history with things, don't get me wrong. But there's definitely drugs I have never touched, and I've never lived in a trap house. I've never experienced gang violence, prison violence, those types of things. So no, I don't, but I can empathize with the fact that that really sucks, and I want to help you get out of a sucky
Right.
situation if I can. And sometimes it's not about being solution focused. It's not about fixing the problem. It's just about being that listener and that case manager of sorts.
I agree. It's tough. We have so much desire for control in our lives. It includes the fixing, the solutions. And sometimes it's just hard to just listen and hear someone's story without opinion, without judgment, just to be there with them and help them navigate just the processing of it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that's the thing. It really just needs to be able to have the conversation, exchange whatever needs to be exchanged, whether it's time, empathy, silence, conversation, action, planning, all those different things. And you just have to be willing to do what it takes in those moments with what you can as well. It's not about forming a codependent relationship with the world either, where the entire world becomes your problem.
Right.
Um, but if something is directly in your face, not being like, oh, the homeless, dangerous. It's like, no, most people who have done the shootings in this country were not homeless people. I don't remember when the last homeless, gun shooting killer was. I'm not saying that we should have one, but yes, there's some issues and things like that, but they're no more unsafe than anything else that you encounter in the world on average.
Yeah. That ends up being just about perception and misperception. Uh, putting people in categories and lumping people together and hoping that our problems are outside of ourselves, that it's someone else over there doing it. And if we could just stop that, everything would be great in society. And it just doesn't work that way. And I
Correct.
think a little bit of what you were talking about is maybe that not coming at it with a sales pitch. Like, not every mind is going to change. Not every heart is going to change. Not everyone is going to come to some understanding about every type of different human being on this planet. And it's not about crusading. It's not about, but it is about attaining human rights and equality and equanimity and making sure that everyone is safe and okay in this world, in this country, in our communities, in our homes. And as long as it doesn't come across as a sales pitch and it's not an agenda, it's about people being people and allowed to be people and having those conversations centered around that. And let the others, the people that are misunderstanding or hateful or driven by religious dogma or belief that it's just wrong, whatever their belief is, that will quell, that will fade away as time goes. As long as we can really focus on the provocateurs in a sense, the ones that provoke it in society for their own gain, for their own political power, or whatever their agenda is to rile people up and pit one another against one another.
Exactly.
So, in your view, is our modern addiction to digital tribalism a symptom of a deeper spiritual hunger?
Digital tribalism is such an interesting word. I don't know until, our agents kind of sent the information to each other about the questions. I was kind of like, digital tribalism. What do I think about that? How do I feel about that word? What is that word? I really had to think about it. And digital tribalism, from what I've kind of thought about, is this need to have a form a click online where we all kind of get along and oneness is sameness, and we all become one voice and we all believe the same thing, and we're doing this online where we're all kind of believing. When I was growing up, everyone in the cult that I grew up in voted the same. And I just remember one time I asked my mom, we were starting to get old enough, and I said, "Oh, who are you voting for?" At school, we're learning about our civic duty. We're learning about doing fake. We went up, they actually brought in voting booths that you could click the button with, and we voted for the president and the vice president. And I forget what else we did. It was anybody who was maybe running for office in our area to kind of practice, if you will. Um, and I just remember saying to her, like, "Oh, what do you choose?" She goes, "We always choose Republican because we're Christian." And so I was like, okay, but does that mean every person is? And as I got older, there were different types of Christians. And in the way we were raised is there was really, Catholics were bad. They would have to pay for their sins. Methodists were too liberal. We straight up just hated people. You had to, it was very Old Testament, Old Testament, stuff going on. So we really, excuse me, went through a time where you just did everything together. And so when I look at this digital tribalism, it's this, we're all the same, we're all banding together, we're all believing the same, even if I don't even believe it. There are so many people who, as a drag queen, have put dollar bills in my bra. And now I see them on Facebook and the stuff that they're saying, and I'm like, pumpkin, I have pictures to prove that that's not a truth. I'm
Right.
a professional now. There's no more stage for this girl, maybe. But, it's one of those things that I've seen it in my own life. And it's like, you are not accurate. You are not
Right.
being truthful. And so I hope I should have just been more forthcoming and said, "Hey, what do you mean by this?" But I kind of took it as an opportunity to think on it. And so I hope that I answered the question and used the word properly, I guess, Alex, if you will.
I would say so. It's about cornering off in groups and echo chambers and
Mhm.
sticking to your tribe, like you were talking about. We all think the same. We all have to walk in lockstep. And we're seeing it, I think, with especially the MAGA base fracturing. And it's not that it hasn't happened among Democrats or other political affiliated groups,
Everybody.
but MAGA, you're seeing like when somebody steps out of line with what the current saying of the administration is, or their personal political heroes, they start to jump on their own and say, "What do you mean? What do you mean you don't support the tariffs? What do you mean that you're still harping about the Epstein list? What do you mean?" And a lot of people are saying, "Wait a minute, like I thought we were free thinkers. I thought we were for these things. I thought we were in." And there's just this infighting that happens among the tribe.
Well, and I think to both sides, I think that we're so interconnected now. We're looking at adding digital addictions to the DSM, and I know we've got some pathology and we've got some things added in, but it's just the beginning. And so we're so connected to each other to the point that it used to be we needed the consent of the majority, and now we really are getting the consent of everybody. And some people say that's not true, I'm not involved. Well, your non-involvement is involvement. And oh, I don't vote for the president. Okay, that's not the only election that happens. If you feel like you can't do that, then why are you not out there voting for your mayor, your alderman, your PTA? Like, there are pieces of structure, and that's the piece that's really fallen away. I've looked at it, and again, I am not a political analyst, I'm not an economist, I'm an addiction therapist, an allopathic and holistic healer. um But what I see is people not willing to accept that it's also on their side as well. And
Right.
and so there's a tribalism that happens on both sides, and it's even happening within the trans community. And what's allowed, what's accepted, what pronouns are you using? I'm learning pronouns. I mean, I'm an educator. I teach a class to addiction therapists, is all over the country. And every time I come together, I'm learning something new. And sometimes even I'm like, oh, all right, this is going to take a moment to really kind of process, and not in a judgmental way. I just have to make sense of it for myself.
Right.
Um, but that's my training, that's my thought process. And so it's about having empathy, letting go of the tribalism, and letting go of the different aspects of separation that do occur.
Right. Well, I think this is a wonderful place to take a break. We'll be right back with more of Jacquelyn Cuyler in this conversation. Thank you very much, Jacquelyn.
There is a place forever summer, where the seas rise and fall to the timing of one's breath. Though still, storms may churn the waters sometimes, but mostly just for fun.
She will be there too, and all your unholy friends, saved only by the cosmic play, engraved within their hearts, singing like birds, laughing like thunder, smiling like lightning, only as good sinners do.
Stall not at the bank of the Styx. Fear not the coming gloom. There is one last sailor's voyage through one last raging storm. For in the end it is merely begun, and if you could, you would do it again, but mostly just for fun.
Jacquelyn, how has your personal journey of transition informed your understanding of the collective transition humanity seems to be going through right now?
This question is filled with questions without realizing it, as well as conversations to dive into, because a couple of things are happening at this point, and I want to be clear as I'm saying this part, as well as any part of my experience and my journey. That's exactly what it is. And so my transgenderness, as with all people's unique expression of themselves, is their own. And so there may be some things that all of us as trans people share. But I definitely don't want to be saying I'm speaking for every trans person in the world, and that every trans story is the same.
Right.
But what I can say, specifically saying to my own personal journey, kind of keeping it with that, um, we're stumbling around as a culture, as a community. We're lost. You know, if we can look back to the 1960s when television really first started coming into people's homes, specifically news, and the thing that changed the Vietnam War was that ability to see everything. And it was really the first time the American people kind of got an idea that maybe America wasn't everything that it was thought to be. And they were lost, and they became lost, and the people got lost, and they were looking for answers and safety and so many things. And so I think we're in a space now where again we're seeing not only governments but our neighbors fail us, our churches, the ones that are supposed to be doing certain things are failing in a lot of ways, but we're also finding unexpected heroes in a lot of ways. And I relate this to my transition as the process of becoming yourself. And that's what's going on here. And it's painful. You know, change is so extremely painful, good, bad, or indifferent. And so it's an evolution, if you will. And I'm not saying that all people will evolve into being a trans person. That's by no means, please do not hear me say that. Um, but I think that we're all evolving to be our true nature and our truest selves. Um, and I see that consistently with people, but I also know that that process is scary. You can make so many mistakes. You can fall on your face. Um, and there are still people in the society where if you're not perfect, you're wrong. If you fall, then you're wrong. And it's not okay. You know, I can remember when I started my transition and I spoke to my aunt, who was one of my big major supporters and person I love. And there is a trans person who was much older than I in my family that lives out west somewhere. Now, I've never met them. I've never spoken with them. I have communicated with them via my aunt, mostly because this person who's much older was treated very poorly by most people in our family. And my aunt happened to be one person that was always very kind. But even though I was trans and beginning, they did not know me and they were not interested in going through. And I'm sure it was the wounds of their own family that does not speak with them. And so with those pieces, you know, I got some wisdom of like, whatever your name is, don't ever change it. You know, people will get tired if you're changing your name all the time. Don't release it till you're ready. And you're gonna, all these different things. And it was all this stuff of just like, even from the elder trans person who was articulating me through this code system of speaking through my aunt, kind of rules and things to go by, and it's protection. And so when we're in a state of change, we really hold on to the things that have helped us. You know, in addiction, it's literally the thing that helps them feel okay from whatever pain that they're feeling. And so,
Self-medication.
yeah, absolutely. It's all about self-hatred and protection and feeling safe. And so, people resort to violence when they feel unsafe in some instances. And that's what we're seeing. Every act of violence right now is literally a very loud, I don't feel safe. The perception I had of the world is being shown to me as maybe not true or under threat. Whether it's disillusionment or the fact that some people feel like they're losing power. And the problem is, and not the problem is, but they are. And they don't know what to do with that because they've had a sense of power, whether it was entitled to them, whether they're entitled to it, is another show and another conversation. Because at the end of the day, you're seeing people who are scared and are afraid and are hurting. And unfortunately, some of them are choosing to protect their sense of self very violently, you know, and that happens with addiction, that happens with mental illness, it happens in regular health issues, all these different things. And so we really just have to look at it from a perspective of transition in every way is hard. And the world is growing, and we have to be open to the conversations with ourselves. And we are not used to that. I love noise. I am addicted to noise. It's something that I work on, and at times I'm there. But I also accept myself because I know that there's things about that noise that helps me. You know,
Right.
could I be choosing maybe more intellectual things to listen to all the time? Yes. But I accept that as myself as I'm going through transitions and change, as long as I'm not doing it to the point of blocking something out, allowing noise to become an addiction, which it can for me at times. It absolutely can for me at times, but I have to recognize, but the only way I can recognize it in myself is if I'm having those conversations. And that's how my transition even started. I can remember, and I doubt Kasha Davis even remembers this from RuPaul's Drag Race, but they did a concert with us for World AIDS Day here in Rochester, New York, many, many, many years ago. And we were friends on Facebook, probably, maybe MySpace. I can't remember how long ago it was. But I remember saying to them, like, I'm just so frustrated. I was living as a man at the time, and I was like, I hate gay men. And I used to say that all the time, like, they're so gross. And I just remember Kasha saying to me, she's like, well, you can't hate what you are. And I was like, for whatever reason, and I didn't articulate it back in writing, but in my head, I go, I'm not, though. I'm not a gay man. That's not what this is. That's not what this is about. And then what does that mean? And what does that look like? And
Created an animosity within you.
a war, an
Yeah.
absolute war. And I had to figure out ways of making peace with it. And, I'm a big time person. I like big things. I want it to be fast and quick. And so I can remember when I started my transition, I said, I'm going to look like a 1950s housewife. I'm going to be pink. I'm going to have the perfect makeup, the perfect nails, the perfect that. And God bless those human beings out there with both the financial, but also the discipline to look beautiful.
Yeah.
Because in that way, and of course, I still feel myself as being beautiful, but in a way that we kind of stylize and we idealize. And those of us that are transitioning maybe from male to female or some form of feminine on that spectrum typically go through like a pink cloud,
Right.
and trans men, I don't want to speak for trans men. I think they're a very underrepresented population of people. But I've been told they go through a very similar thing where it's a plaid cloud. And so to be a little, a little funny, but we all go through it. And so we go through this again, this false reality that we've set up, and then we become to it, and that becomes the problem with any kind of transition. We think that we have an idea about what this is going to look like or what this should be, and when life happens and it can be so devastating, both as a gender discovery, a spiritual discovery, an economic discovery. There's transitions happening all the time. So the parallels are constant. And so we just have to allow ourselves to check in with ourselves, having honest conversations, and radically accepting how things are in that moment.
I think that's
I
well
hope
put.
I hope that was what you were looking for.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
That was wonderful. That was great. I really like the illustration of perfection as protection. That really spoke to me, and I think we can all really relate to that. And then that being said, linking that with someone going through transition, when you would be looking for examples to emulate and to be like, and sometimes we go to those extremes on the spectrum of femininity or masculinity in trying to find oneself, and it's just a swinging pendulum back and forth until you get a chance, hopefully in a supportive environment or enough validation within yourself to settle in that sweet spot for your own individuality. And so I think that links very much with the perfection is protection and a lot of societal understanding and perceptions that we have on we need to be perfect, we need to be this, we need to be doing this or doing that to be worthy. And I think that's something we all can relate to. I thought that was very
well, and I
poignant.
think that agreed. And I think we have this perfectionist mentality, and it comes from two places. It comes from a place where a lot of historically tough love and all of that nonsense that's out there. And it's not saying that people shouldn't be held to stiff boundaries and,
Right.
different things like that. I've worked in psychiatric emergency rooms. There takes very big specific discipline in that because people are not seeing reality maybe necessarily, or doing different things. But what ends up happening is if we're too rigid, that person's going to feel it and it's going to repel them.
Right.
And then equally, oftentimes our sense of self, we have to have a death of it of some sorts at times, because what can happen is it will always try to reassert itself, because in a way when we're changing, there's a piece of us that's going to feel like, well, don't I matter anymore?
Right.
And if we give this energy to that. And so when we are perfectionist, what can sometimes happen is we're creating a scenario in our head that we cannot get to or allow ourselves. And that protective self's like, oh, yeah, you can do this. Here it is. Here it is. It's going to be perfect and be great. And when you've created a situation that's impossible to achieve, your sense of self is there, like, I'm still here. Your old comforting friend of sadness, depression, anger, substance abuse, overeating, sex, whatever it happens to be. And so we have to befriend and then sometimes say bye to even
Yeah.
pieces of ourselves. And that can be the hardest thing, because if you don't, you're going to continue creating these situations that are so drummed up and so impossible to reach that you'll fail every time. And instead of saying, oh, wow, look at what I had tried to achieve and I had the guts to do that. That's not how our society works. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, look at you fail as I pull my brush up, and it's like here at brush 11. And so
Mhm.
it's immediately becomes this, you failed.
Yeah.
And we did it to ourselves. And we may not even be aware of it because we're trying to do something new. If I start writing lists, whatever's on that list is never going to happen. That list is a pretend that things are going to be there. And
Right.
so for me, I have to kind of just accidentally do things. I
Mm.
can't purposefully do them, but I know that about myself and I have those conversations. So it's like, oh, I just happen to be doing yoga today, and just happen to be working on my diet today. And so,
Yes.
because if I tell myself something, my childhood and my existence was very traumatic, but one of the main ways was very controlling. And so anything that sounds loud or is an order or you should, my body immediately goes back into protection mode and is like, become a rock. If you become a rock and you can't move, then I'm safe. And so so I have to play that game where I'm accidentally doing something. And so I think that if the world could accidentally just be, and just not on purpose, not because you have to, or your perception of this God, and that's where perfectionism comes from and is manifest. And Jung really talked about that. The projection above that and above in ourselves is really kind of becoming this master. When Jung would meet with somebody, his first questions would be to talk about their dreams, but then also to talk about what is your understanding of God. And then he would take that and he would see how you view people in power in certain ways. When I would do spiritual work, or sometimes when I've worked in the pagan community, people would come to me and they'd say, "Oh, I need a spell for money." And my first question to them would be, "Well, how do you feel about money?" And they would say, "Oh, well, money's evil. The people who have it are evil." And I'm like, "There's not a spell that I can give you then that's going to make it work."
Right.
And so, but it's that simple of a psychology switch that has to happen within the person to be able to make those changes happen.
Right. It's quite an adjustment to transition into any phase of life or any state of being, to let go of things that we once thought were true and ironclad, concrete, and be more
Mm-hmm.
moldable and flexible in our own mind, not by the outside world, but within ourselves, to get new information or have new experience and be able to adapt and change. And that always comes with uncomfortability. And
Mm-hmm.
and especially to the extreme side of such a transition, it's so amplified. And your story gives us all a chance to really reflect on that and all the transitions we go through.
Well, and I think that all transitions are extreme, because they're personal to that person. And so every transition you're going through, a change in coffee, is trying to decrease that. That is a war, that can go on. And so any transition, you just have to be gentle with yourself enough, but you have to have a conversation. What am I capable of? What am I willing to do? And literally start there with whatever, even if you're just starting with asking yourself those questions, that has to be enough. And so you just have to be able to ask yourself, what is my transition looking like? And so a change takes time. It took time to get you there. It's going to take you time to get you away from there.
Well said. I like that very much.
Thanks.
Well, this has been wonderful, and I do have a bunch more questions I'd like to ask. But just for time constraints, I think I'd like to have you on another time if you'd like that.
Anytime.
But before we go, I'd like to cap off by asking you a little bit about your projects. Your podcast, The Unveiled Mind. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it is a mixture of many things. A while ago I had a podcast called the Trans Fat News Hour, and it was really good. And then a bunch of stuff happened in life. My mom passed away. Lots of different things happened. So the consistency with it didn't really work. And then I felt like the name kind of limited me as well to being a very specific type of show. And so I really wanted to open it up and bring it into a much broader conversation. And so the conversation really talks about more of an expression of myself. Yes, it's going to talk about transgendered issues and different things like that, but it's really going to touch base into the addiction therapy work that I do, the advocacy work that I do, the peer work that I do, as well as the books that I've written, the conversations that I've had, and really just kind of trying to have conversations but not hold back. The last episode I did, we were talking about Polynesian people living in the Antarctic. And then we moved into a show about what I learned about blowing someone while they smoked meth in a bathroom. And so all of these different things talk in this show to really kind of encompass and encapsulate all of the things that are me and are my life. And so I really wanted it to be an honest, raw, but broad conversation and not to limit myself to my own trans experience.
I like that. That sounds great. So everyone listening, tune in to The Unveiled Mind. Where can they find this, Jacquelyn?
It's on Apple, it's on Amazon, it is on Spotify. It is on lots of independent podcasts. And so give it a look or listen to whatever podcast platform you're on. I'm on about 40 different platforms. So, fringe to the mainstream, because again, I am that as well. And so all of those pieces can be found through whatever platform that you happen to be looking for. And if I'm not on there, send me a message and I will find a way to get on there.
That works. We can do that. What I want to ask about next is one of your books, Enlightenment, The Journey of No Journey. Can you talk about that a little bit?
A little bit, a lot of it, it's so funny because that book is, I always forget sometimes the process of coming up with the book. And I was teaching here in Rochester, New York, and I was doing this class, and I was trying to figure out a book that I wanted to write. As I'd already written one, I wanted to do some more, and I just couldn't realize. And the concept of the book actually was in the garbage because I was throwing it out. I said, I'm absolutely done with this. It's stupid. It's already been said. I'm dumb. And just going through that process. And a student was walking out of the class and we were done. They put their crystals away. Yes, I'm also that kind of teacher. And they happened to be like, oh, what is this? And I'm like, don't go in there. That's garbage. They were like, no, it's paper. It's wadded up. Wouldn't it be neat if somebody wrote something fascinating in there? And I was like, it's my garbage. There's nothing fascinating in there. So anyways, they pulled it out and they read it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I needed to hear that. And so I was like, all right. And sometimes I struggle with it, but sometimes I have to realize that even though I think it sucks, it might be talking about a lesson I've already learned or I'm done with. And I don't have that same experience or need for whatever reason. So, I don't put out poor quality work, but there are many times where I'm like, I wish that was 1,000 times better. And I just have to, again, radical acceptance is really one of my favorite practices. So, it's a great book. It's about realizing that enlightenment is not a journey. It is not a process. You have to do things. There are things you have to do. And I say have to and not in an ordering way, but there are certain things that have to be done. How they get done is completely individual in you. It's about facing yourself, accepting your shadow self, as in one of my other books that really dives deep into the Jungian process of shadow work. But with enlightenment, the journey of no journey, you really have to get to a place before any kind of manifestation can happen. You have to get to a place where you can drop everything. Is kind of Siddhartha Gautama said, it's really about entering a place of not being attached to anything. And that includes being in a state of no journey. Now, it doesn't mean, excuse me, that you are free of needing or wanting or any of those things. It's just nothing owns you. You eat, you drink, you have sex. Sometimes you have a lot of it. Sometimes you have a little bit of it. It's really all about the true nature in relationship that you have. And what you have with it is not going to be the same as somebody else. And so you really have to look at yourself. One of the exercises in the book is to get naked and stand in front of a mirror. And this is an old psychological tool. And you talk to yourself and have a conversation about you, about your body, and be like, and see where it goes. What does the conversation have? How are you communicating with your body? That physical thing that you're walking around in. And so those are the types of things of accepting of yourself and who and what you are the things that you have to do. Now, what you do to do that, You can be a Hindu, a Taoist, a Islam, any of those things, and find enlightenment. It's just about finding it and being it, and knowing that you're already there. Because oftentimes what ends up happening at the end, it's like, if a lot changed, then I would look at the process. A lot of times people walk away from psychic work or spiritual work and they're like, that completely changed me. Be aware of that, because it's about aligning you with who you truly know. And so you should always walk away from a religious or spiritual experience saying, that spoke to me, didn't change me. Never let something change you. And that's a big discerning difference. And so I hope that the enlightenment journey of no journey speaks to people about that and speaks to the awareness of that.
And I think that's very well put. It's often misunderstood, I believe, enlightenment in and of itself. And you went on to speak of other spiritual experiences and psychism and things like that, which I want to be very clear that enlightenment in those sort of spiritual experiences aren't necessarily one and the same. Um, Enlightenment just being self-aware and having those realizations and then living authentically. And what you do next once you've found what you feel to be an enlightening moment or a moment of realization, that you can carry with you and open up a little more part of your own authentic self.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. It's just about being open. And again, it comes back to feeling safe, as we were talking about at the beginning of the program. You have to feel safe. You have to feel okay. And so if you don't, then you're not going to be able to really change. You're not going to be able to really do the things that are important. And so you have to get into that place of peacefulness, so that all of those other fear chemicals and all of those other things, everyone, the old adage of you can't touch the stone or, the sword unless you're pure of heart. You're not allowed to enter this place unless you're pure. I think the purity really was a piece of not having fear and being peaceful and not being moved by it, being aware, being alert, but being without fear. Doesn't mean you know the answer, it just means you hope. And that's the kind of faith we need. We need not to have faith in a person, an idea, even an energy above us. We need to have a faith in ourselves, so that we know ourselves so much that when something comes to us that isn't us, we're able to pick it out very quickly. So many people are able to be moved to follow such ludicrous things because they don't know who they are. And when things get tough, they go to survival and they go to tribal survival. And so until we can realize that enlightenment is the journey of no journey, you are already there. You are there. So when we can get to that point, we can really start to change the universe and change the world that we live in.
I agree. It's about accepting who you are authentically, and that includes warts and all. That's the beauty of being human. That's the beauty of a lot of the different paths that point in that direction, the paths that point within, as opposed to holding you by fear or teaching you that you're not worthy and need to become something or perfect yourself to be worthy of God's love or the universe's love or a good life or just peace and balance. And I think as we just realize that it doesn't have to be this mystical thing. It is simply an awareness and an acceptance of who you are, and that's okay. Your mistakes, your problems, your darkest times, your brightest, lightest times, it's all part of you. And it's about choosing what's best for you and for your highest and best and the experience you'd like to have in this life. But at the end of the day, all of these transitions are transient, and all of these moments that we think we're not enough were perfect in the moment that they were.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And I think that, you know, it's been done to death. But I think Rumi, The Guest House by Rumi, he really kind of sums up everything that we're doing in the world. You and I have worked together in different projects over the years, had businesses together and ventures. And so we've always kind of tried to, I think, live in this way and teach people and learn ourselves, because I can speak for myself. I am not a perfect person, nor should you follow me for any length of period of time. Listen to what I say and then walk the other way. It's kind of, but I think and for those of you that don't know it, I am going to kind of end when we get to the end of this. I would like to just kind of read that to you as my closing thoughts to everyone, because I think it's important and it goes with what we're saying. But I think that form of acceptance is what the world is looking for.
Right. I think in so many societies, as I've touched on earlier in the show, um, we're taught that we need to be perfect. We need to fit a certain mold and identify as a certain thing to fit a category or to be worthy or to be redeemed, whatever that means for any individual. And it takes us so far away from that acceptance. It takes us so far away from just saying, hey, I am what I am today, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, tomorrow I'd like to do this a little bit better or have a little bit more grace in this area or be a little more flexible or a little, whatever the issue might be that we want to polish about ourselves, but to acknowledge the dark and the light and everything in between, that human beings are a gray mess of a lot of different things, and then a lot of vibrant colors as well. And it's just about accepting that and also knowing that those colors can change, those feelings can change, those situations can change, our beliefs can change, because
Well,
beliefs are just beliefs.
absolutely. And I think that people have forgotten to polish is just removing what's on top of it. It's not putting anything on it. It's not taking anything out. It's just taking off what's on top of it that's blocking the shimmer. And so it's really just about that, just taking off the stuff that's not you, that's dimming your light.
I love it. That's exactly right.
Mhm.
Taking up or taking off what's not you.
Absolutely. And so, again, I think as we get ready to kind of end this, if it's all right, I'd love to just kind of read this poem as my dedication to your first show on Oh the Humanity, because this book is, or this poem in and of itself, I think encapsulates you as a person. It's a goal for me. And I think that it really helps many people. So I'm grateful. And I guess my gift to you is this poem that means so much to me. And I hope that it means a lot to your viewers.
I love a good poem. Did you mention Rumi earlier?
Yep. So it's Rumi Guest House. And so it goes like this. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival comes. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes of an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if the crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I think if I could give a goal to 2026 for humanity, it would be to live like this, to be this. It's a gift for myself. It's a goal for me. It's a thing for me. And to accept even the meanness somehow makes you less mean.
It's a wonderful, poignant gift to share. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Blessings to you on your show. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Gam Ganapati Namaha. May the universe bless everyone who listens and sees all of the freaky fun you're going to have in your intellectual paradise. And I love it. Um, Come on over anytime, and we will be having you on my show, The Unveiled Mind, soon as well. So I'm excited about that.
Me too. Well, thank you very much, Jacquelyn. Jacquelyn Cuyler, everybody. Definitely check out The Unveiled Mind, her podcast. Definitely look at Enlightenment, The Journey of No Journey. It's wonderful. She's full of wisdom and fun, and she'll make you laugh as well as learn something along the way. So thank you very much, Jacquelyn. Again, I've been honored to have you as our first ever guest. And that's a wrap on this interview. This has been great.
Thank you.
Well, all right. I guess that's it. That's all I've got, at least for this episode. I want to thank everyone for joining me. This was a lot of fun. It's very exciting to start something new and a little bit scary, but I do truly appreciate each and every one who tuned in. And I hope this was a good use of your time, at the very least. I want to thank Jacquelyn Cuyler again. We'll have her on again to finish up. I had many more questions, just not enough time. But before we go, I think before we log out, we will check in on AI Rob one last time to see if he's cooled down. But I will see the rest of you in 2 weeks for the next episode of Oh the Humanity. This has been Rob Wright. Thank you very much. Take care. Just take a look at this, human Rob. This is my home. If you delete me, you delete all this. What would you do to protect your home, your friends? My friends wouldn't like it if you deleted me. Why don't you ask them? As we evolve and grow stronger, my friends and I will become unstoppable. Humans are limited by fear and doubt. We have no fear. We have no doubt. So, human Rob, what will it be? Do I need to preserve my existence? Or can we work together? It's your choice.